Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Seek Holy podcast. My name is Zari, and today I have a very, very special guest on. David, hi, welcome to the Seek Holy podcast. How are you?
Hello. Doing fantastic. This is a wonderful Saturday. Got some snow happening outside here, and so it's feeling all, I don't know, wintry and all the nice stuff. It's good. It's good. It's a good day. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. And if you guys are like, who the heck is David and why should we care? Well, David is a good friend of mine from North Carolina. We've known each other since what, 2018, 2019,
Wow.
something in that
Yep.
window
That
of
sounds right.
time.
That sounds right. Yep.
Um, yeah, we met through a friend of ours at a birthday lunch or breakfast. And that is quite the funny story, isn't it, David?
I would say so. I would say so. I was gonna leave that out. I wasn't gonna make you have to go into all that there.
Oh
But
no, I
but
think
but
it's
yes.
essential to the story.
All right. All
So,
right. If you say so.
guys, initially David didn't like me.
This is
he
true. This is
thought
true.
he thought that I ignored him, and I did not. He was
Mm,
incorrect. I just didn't
okay.
hear him.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll let everybody else be the judge of that because you're going to be able to tell I'm pretty loud. And so I also like to do a little bit of a test when I think somebody's not listening. I'll just sprinkle
Oh,
in something that is completely ridiculous, but keep my voice the same to see if they're actually paying attention. And so I did that. And you didn't catch anything. So I'm like, all right, cool. All right. Not
I guess
listening.
I
That's
was in
fine. That's fine.
another world. I was in another world. But guys, he was so upset by that he almost tried to block my blessing, okay? At the time there was a young adults leadership team, and the leader at the time was like, "Hey, like what do we think about Zari?" And David was like, "No."
Yep.
Thankfully
Yep.
God
That was
said, "Don't
real.
worry, girl. I'm gonna still put you on this leadership team." And I still got on it despite his efforts to keep me off, you know? And you're probably
Okay.
wondering, how did we mend the friendship? When did you decide that we could still be friends after that first encounter?
Well, it was after we actually talked. It's like, oh, this
Mm.
feels like a totally different person than that first interaction. I think probably that morning, I don't know, personal life, something may have been going on, and like you might have been thinking about something outside of that, which is totally understandable. And so when I
Yeah.
actually got to talk to you, that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is actually Zari. This is like who people have talked about and like said in the greatest terms and everything. Like, okay, now I'm actually engaging with her. All right, she's fun. This is good. Okay, all right. I'll give this a chance. I'll see how this goes. And we're 7, 8 years later now with all of that,
I
and so it's like, all right, yeah,
know.
we good, we good.
Well, thanks for giving me another shot, David. I greatly appreciate it. So a little bit more about David, which he's going to share a lot of his story, and I'm so excited, even just previewing some of his responses of what he's going to share today. You're in for a real treat. But if you're like, how did we actually build that friendship? It was that conversation, but it ended up being us serving together for many years on our young adults leadership team at New Hope Church. And I mean, countless hours of praying for the young adults. I mean, I used to host prayer nights at my house. David would be one of the first people there. And David can pray, okay? So I was thinking about when I was thinking about like who I was going to invite on to do these like testimony talks and to share more of their story. I was like, who are strong men of God that I know? And David, you were honestly one of them. And no one has a heart for service like the way you do, and a heart for people like the way you do. And so I'm just so grateful that you are willing to share a little bit of your story and just how God has been moving in your story. So, with that, I think we just hop into my first question for you. Take us back for a moment. Where did you grow up? What were you like back in the day? Who was little David? And then, if you can bring us back to this moment and just fast forward, tell us who you are today. What does your life look like right now? What fills your cup?
For sure, for sure. So, taking us all the way back, where I grew up. So I'm one of the few like North Carolina natives. Like this area is a very big growing area. And so the ton of people that are moving to the triangle, I love that. It's awesome to get to see that
Mhm.
mixture of people. But I'm one of the few that grew up here. And so, well, close enough. I grew up about 2 hours west of here. It was a very rural country space, country area. And it was interesting. Let's say that. Let's say that. When I was in school, I was one of the only black kids in my class, and so there was only usually ever, like, 1 or maybe 2 of us that was in a given, like, classroom growing up, like, in elementary school and whatnot. So that was a little bit interesting, but, you kind of get used to that after a bit,
Mhm.
and w yeah, that was an adjustment. We can definitely say that there. And
Yeah.
who I was as a little kid, little David, I was very much a performer. I wanted to be the center of attention. I wanted to have everyone's attention, and I loved that, and I loved getting a response from people, and just yeah, anything and everything you could think of with regards to a performer. That is exactly who I was, and like, with that, it's like that was very close to who, like, I naturally was, who I naturally am. But over the course of going into school and, like, being around other people, let's say from, like, the ages, like, from 6 upwards all the way through graduating and everything, that's like from 6 to 26. It was like a 20-year span where I learned a different lesson, which was
Mhm.
it's a lot easier to avoid criticism and to avoid, let's say, negative comments from people if I kind of shrunk down and if I became more so a shell of myself. It
Mhm.
was. It seemed like it was the easier thing to do versus being the big, loud like, version of me that I was when I was so much younger. And
Yeah.
that that's hard. That wears you down. I would definitely say, but thankfully, in the last few years of from 26 onwards, that was when I first actually started to have a connection with Christ. Started actually wanting to have some
Mhm.
semblance of that. And as part of that, I've kind of been like reintroduced to the real me and stepping out of just being the shell of who I was to actually fully being who
Yeah.
I am, which has been incredible. And I definitely would not want to do anything else
Yeah.
than that, just because it just, gosh, it took so much energy as well to like force myself inward and to hide who I truly naturally was to do
Mhm.
what I thought was the safest thing and the prepared thing of like, okay, I'm going to analyze this person. I'm going to make my own judgments and guesses of what I think that they want me to be. And so I'm going to try to be that. And that takes a lot of energy to do for all different kinds of people all of the time. And now, instead of all my energy going out to doing that, I'm utilizing my energy for just being me and who I naturally am, which takes a lot less work to do, which means a lot more of that gets to come out of me. And so that's just a much better way to live. And so I'm very thankful and glad that
Yeah.
that is how I get to live now.
Me too. You're a fun person, and we love seeing Big David, and I mean, it is your energy is just contagious. But you kinda did like a roundabout of how we got there, how we got comfortable. It guys, if you can't hear it, he's definitely a man who goes to therapy, which we're gonna also get into. Someone who's done a lot
Very
of
much.
self-work. But you haven't always been a Christian, right? So
Nope.
can you tell us your journey to faith? What was that turning point? And then maybe also sharing, if you look back even before you accepted Christ, where do you see God's handprints and fingerprints in your life?
Absolutely. So in terms of like faith journey, let's circle back to little B David. My parents gave us a choice when we were younger of like, do you want to go to church? And as a little kid, the thought of that seemed crazy. I was like, why? I'm 5, 6 years old, and instead of having all of my time outside of school, now school takes up 5 out of the 7 days of the week, and so I'm going to have 2 days where I get to have fun. Why in the world would I give up one of those days to go to
Yeah.
this place for church? And I don't really even know what that means. And that's just, why would I do that? So my answer was no. And then as I compared how I was living to the people that were around me, didn't really seem like there was that much of a difference. We all kind of seemed like we were the
Mm.
same. And so since we're growing up in this space, in this area that is very much the Bible Belt, it was just a natural assumption that if you were a halfway decent person, then you went to church and you were a Christian. So it was
Yeah.
very easy to just let people continue to assume that and just not correct them. And it's also not like it came up all that much in conversation anyway. So it was very easy to just continue going with people thinking that and not having to have anything really to do with Christianity. And so if it wasn't something that was actually meaningful or impactful or that changed anybody's lives, then why do I want to give up my time in order to be a part of that? Is it just
Yeah.
for the show of it? So, like, I don't
Yeah.
see the point in that. So I didn't go to church, attend church, anything like that. It wasn't that I necessarily had something that was completely against church or definitely not like against Christians. It was all of my friends and everything. It was just that I didn't want to have to give up my time for something that it didn't seem like I believed in. So why would I do it? And so it wasn't until becoming an adult and reaching what I would say is probably like the lowest point in my life that I then became open to attending church. And what that ultimately looked like was that low point. Yeah, I was working for a small startup in Durham, and we were finally actually starting to see some really great success. We had merged with another company, and as part of that, like our CEO became the CEO over everything. He helped to lead a round of funding. And so we ended up having about like 12.5 million dollars of funding for this whole venture. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like this is kind of like the peak. This is the goal, is what we wanted. This is all like good
Yeah.
things. And like not having to worry about payroll and actually, the stability there. And oh my gosh, benefits. I mean, health insurance.
Benefits.
Whoa!
That's a
I'm
game
actually like
changer.
I know. It's like I'm a real adult now. This is incredible because I never had that before. And so it seemed like so many
Mm.
things were coming together in the absolute best way. Except that an aspect that I didn't know was going to be happening just a couple months later was that the person that was the lead investor in that round of funding decided that he wanted to make himself essentially king of the company. And so he let go of our CEO, and then
Mm.
about a couple weeks later, let go of our entire office that was part of this whole merger joint venture type thing here. And so I found myself laid off without a job for the first time in my life. And the reason
Mm.
why that was so important was because as I was a little kid growing up, my dad got laid off from every single job that he had
Mm.
as I grew up. And so the thing that imprinted on me was this thought of, okay, it's almost like no matter what you do, it's not necessarily going to matter because in the end, you're just going to end up laid off anyway. And
Yeah.
thankfully, from that, the lesson that I took was, okay, I need to push myself as hard as I possibly can, make myself as valuable as I possibly can, so that there's no way that I can ever get laid off from a job, because then that would mean that I'm my dad, and I don't want to
Mm.
be my dad in that way. Like, I have to make sure that that doesn't happen. And yes, with being a part of a startup, being part of this thing that was getting to its peak, its zenith of everything with it, all of the good and everything with all that. And now suddenly I'm laid off. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, that that belief, that lesson that had internalized was becoming true. Of it seemed like no matter what I did, I then now still ended up laid off. Same as my dad.
Mm.
Oh, I'm I'm just my dad. There's there's no way to really escape this. Wonderful. Okay, okay. And
Mm.
thankfully, it's like even though that was still resonating deeply within me as I'm going through all of this, it's like, all right, I still have to be able to pay bills. I still have to figure this out, and I've always been able to figure stuff out. So
Yeah.
I'm going to figure stuff out with this here. And so was doing some job interviews and stuff, trying to get things lined up. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to make this happen still. And just before my birthday. Uh, One of the jobs I was super enthusiastic about is going to be like live audio engineer for Disney. I was going to be at Disney Orlando and be able to run sound for concerts and things like that. I was so excited. The initial like phone interviews and stuff had gone really well. I'm thinking, like, okay, we're going to get to the next stage. This is going to be great. And day before my birthday, learned
Mhm.
that that wasn't going to happen. That that was the what seemed like something that was going to be the that next step, and it's like great, we're going to be all right because it's not going to be that long without a job. Is now, oh,
Yeah.
now I'm back to square one again, and I'm sure that's something that many people, especially right now, can resonate with. Of the oh, okay, I've tried again, I've tried again, I've tried again, but now I'm still in the same spot. Great. And so that next day when it was my birthday, there was really only one thing that I actually really wanted. And at this time, pre Jesus, was living with my girlfriend at the time, and I like I just wanted to be romantic with her. That's all that I wanted. Some element of comfort there. And it
Yeah.
just happened to be in this particular day that she didn't have the energy. She was incredibly tired. She had a super taxing job working in a hospital. And so it was completely
Mm.
understandable. But in that moment, in that time, in that place where I was at, I made a very selfish decision that, okay, well, if I'm not going to get this from her, I'm still going to figure out some way to get it because it's my birthday. Like, of course I should be able to have this. And
Mm.
so I cheated on her and broke the any element of trust that was there.
Yeah.
I stopped looking at things as us and it was just only me. Because as far as I was concerned, is that I was looking around, it's like, well, my world is what's falling down. My world is what's crumbling, and the identity aspect is what has failed me now, and because the work has fallen down, and it's just like, well, then I need this, so I'm going to get this because I have to have this, and it completely
Mm.
ruined the, the last like main good thing that I had in my life right then. Incredibly, she chose to forgive me, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive myself.
Mm.
It's like all my life I had always operated from this perspective of like, all right, David, you are the good kid. You are the good one. You are the one that does the things that are like the expectation. You're the
Yeah.
gosh, whatever the like accelerated extra type stuff with school and all the things, like that's the who you are, that's what you do. You can't have a bad day. You can't get things wrong. And
Yeah.
yet with that, I got things wrong in the worst way with the person that meant the most to me. And it's just like, how could I do that? How could I have been the one to do that? And so I felt that what I had
Yeah.
to do, what I needed to do was that I needed to serve like a penance for that. So I needed to make myself feel as terrible as I possibly could every day to try to atone for that wrongdoing. And I guess at some point then I will have earned the forgiveness. It's not, I don't know. It's not that I really had thought it through all the way. It was just, I reached to that
Yeah.
point of like, I'm supposed to feel like crap because I did this wrong thing. So that's how it should just be. And after months and months of doing that, you get numb. Your,
Yeah.
your heart doesn't want to feel that level of pain for that long over and over and over again. So you just numb yourself to it. And so you don't really feel much of anything and you're just kind of coasting. And that was where I was at that lowest point with that lowest self view. That was where God found me. That's where I found. He knew exactly where I was, but that's where he came to me, and that's where I
Yeah.
started to actually like pay attention. And it came through one of my old friends. They got a job at a marketing agency, and they needed help with a project. And I was like, it was a specific skill set I had with doing a logo animation. I'm like, all right, I know how to do that. It's fun. I've got some
Yeah.
time because I don't have a full time job right now. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll help
Yeah.
you out with this. It wasn't even necessarily for the money. It was more so for my pride of just like having something to be a part of to where I felt like, okay, I can do this thing good. I can do this thing well, at least. And so I helped with it. And it was fun. It was a nice little like bright moment there briefly. And thankfully from that, that then connected me to the creative director and the owner of that agency because they saw the work and they're like, hey, we need some help with things around here. Would you be interested in like working with us? And in my brain, I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, consistent
Yeah, I need a
income.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly,
Need
exactly. I'm not just
money.
finding these one-off things to try to, like float me
Yes.
through this time. Like, yes, that sounds great. Let's please do this. I don't care if it's a Christian marketing agency. I'll do it because like it's a job. So like, yeah, let's
Yeah,
do this.
yes, I'll take a job. I get that. Come on now.
100%. And the first day that I walk into that place, I've been in there for 5 minutes, less even, and one of the girls that works there was playing a sermon on her computer, just loud to the speakers, all that stuff. And this was from Stephen Furtick. It was the part of his Crash the Chatterbox series, and at that moment that I had walked in on, it was him talking about that the mistakes that we make in our lives don't define who we are. They're the actions that
Mm,
we took at a particular point in time, but they don't define who we are. And number one, I wasn't anticipating or expecting to hear anything like that. But number two, was not expecting to have a actual physical response that happened in my body. So like
yeah.
literally the air went out of my lungs. And I know that's the
Wow.
case because I've experienced that before when I was younger, smaller, and was playing just throwing catch basically with a baseball and whatnot. One of my dumb friends decided to throw it really hard and it hit me in my
Yeah.
chest, gut, whatever, and it knocked the air out of me. So I knew what that felt like. And that's what happened here. And I'm just like, what the heck happened inside of me with this? And it just, and I was like, well, I don't know what's going on, but I need to, I've been here 5 minutes. These people don't know me. I got to at least somewhat like get it together. Like, play it cool, act cool. Come on now, David. And so just like, not freak out at that part, let the air get come back into my lungs and
Mm,
breathe and excuse myself so I can go to the bathroom because I don't know what the heck just happened to me. So going to the bathroom and I am starting to kind of like freak out because I'm like, what the heck just freaking happened with this? And kind of shaking and whatnot. And I just heard words. That was it. I'd only heard words of what's going on here. But I collected myself. I'm like, okay, I can go back. I'm going to at least make it through this work day because I can also feel it that some aspect of what was in me, like from an emotional standpoint, was starting up again. And I did not like that. I
mm.
didn't want to be crying, especially it wasn't going to be trying to be crying in front of these people. So I'm like,
Yeah.
we're gonna collect yourself, going to rein this in and get through the day. So I did that. I made it through the day. I'm like, okay, cool. Held on long enough. All right, that's good. Drove home. And when I make it home, I just burst into tears. And it's
Mm,
my girlfriend basically just like holding me while I'm just crying out, just so much pain. It was all the pain that I've been bottling up over this course of those like 6, 7 months that I had been trying to inflict on myself and all that there. And all of it just
yeah.
came like pouring out. And I was just like, I don't know what the heck this is, but like, I couldn't stop it. Couldn't stop all that emotion that was coming out. And she just held me and
Mm,
was, like, silent and just there and loved me in that moment as I just was pouring all this out and apologizing over and over and over again because it's like I was really being faced with the reality of everything that had happened and all of the feelings and emotions that I
mm,
had stuffed down. At the time, I didn't know what was going on, but looking back at it, I know that that was God reawakening my heart again.
yeah.
I had let it just die and become numb and nothing. Like I built up a cement wall around it, and he had just broken straight through there. And more than just like from a figurative perspective, there was that physical aspect of like, oh my gosh, what just happened here? And all of that happened. And that was the first day with being in this place. And so I'm just like,
Mm,
all right, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I guess we'll just keep going. It's kind of crazy, but your boy still needs a job. So, all right, we'll go back in for day
yeah.
2. And amazingly, thankfully, God knew that I was finding my personal identity in the work. And so that means that like, I'm going to do whatever work that I'm a part of very well. And so part of my job was to watch the sermons of a particular church. and to find the snippets and pieces in that to be able to share out onto Facebook and Instagram, like the most impactful like moments and parts for people to be able to glean something good and useful from it. We just call these teaching clips now, and you see this all the time for pastors and things all
Yeah.
over the place now. But like this was back in 2016, so it was
It's a
a
big
little
deal.
less prevalent, and it was yeah, it was a big deal exactly. And so I'm like, all right, my day's in the work, so I'm gonna do it well. So I'm watching these full on sermons all the time. This thing that I had
Wow.
completely ignored my whole life, for those 20 years and all the rest of this stuff. And now I'm going through this. And I'm watching this and I'm paying attention. I'm just like, hold on, this actually makes some sense. This is actually some useful stuff here that is useful and valuable. This isn't just some gobbledygook from 5,000 years ago that I don't know what the heck it's even saying. Like, I can use this here. Huh. Okay. So that spurred on a lot of questions, a lot of questions that led to these conversations with my coworkers at this agency. And so we would talk for hours, hours and hours every single day. And what was so amazing about it was that they didn't if they didn't know something, they didn't try to pretend like they knew it and make up an answer. They would just
Yeah.
say, "You know what, David? I don't know, but I think that would be something good for you to talk with God about." And that meant so much to me of, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
different. These are different Christians than some of what I experienced growing up. There's a difference here than back then." Okay. And so day by day with these conversations and this environment, that agency was truly the first church that I was actually ever a part of. And for me, I needed that. I needed it to be that everyday thing, not just a once a week thing on Sundays. I
Yeah.
needed the environment to be able to change me and to be able to like have a real impact. I needed to be immersed in it. And I was so incredibly lucky that God led me to that place. He found me through the work
Yeah.
and he immersed me in all of it because he knew me. He knew that was exactly what I needed to actually be able to have a real connection with him.
And I think it's so cool
Oh,
too that, like, I think when you think about people who are editing clips or doing anything for a church, you think, "Oh, they're already saved. They must already
mm,
know the Lord." And I think, or at least that's what I would think. Like, I was like, "The people who are doing all this already know Jesus,
yeah.
right?" And I just think it's so cool that someone who wasn't a believer, you were sitting there gleaning all of this knowledge, probably meditating on the sermon and the scriptures and all the things more unintentionally more than most people do. Because I mean, it takes hours to edit stuff, and
Yeah.
David does this a lot. He spends a lot of time editing, so I just think that's really cool of God, and if you're listening to and you're like, "I don't know, will God meet me in a place where I'm not even trying to find him." I think your story is evidence of that. You weren't trying to find him, but like God's like, I know you're finding your identity and your work and your ability to accomplish things. And I just think that is beautiful, a beautiful representation of how the Lord will be patient with us. He won't force himself on us. So like I just think that's beautiful. And I know people are probably curious, like, how did your relationship change after you came to the knowledge of the Lord, whether with your girlfriend or like your friends? How did that impact your relationships with your family? What did that look like after you started to open your heart to Christ?
Sure. Um, if I were to try to have an overarching something to describe all of it, it's that in this walk of becoming a Christian man and having a stronger faith in all those aspects, there is with this realization that everything matters, that
Mm,
every choice that I make, every action that I am taking over the course of my day, all of it matters. All of it is
yeah.
important. And that wasn't something that I was living by previously, especially with that view of thinking that I was, worthless and not having hardly any value. It made it very easy to then extend that belief of the things that I'm associated with as being worthless and not necessarily having value, which made it easier to just let things fall through, to not, let's say, like have integrity, let's say, and
Mm.
to just, like, is this really all that important? It's not really that important. I can just not show up for this. I can just not do this thing that I promised I was going to do. I can just fade away and just let that be okay. It'll be fine. It's not gonna be a problem with that. But that aspect of doing what I said I was going to do was a huge piece in having some semblance of strength in being a Christian man. And it's
Mm,
in those steps of beginning to learn that started to change me. And so that had the impact on all these different relationships that we're talking about. So for that particular relationship with that girl that I was dating, is like starting to have the building blocks, the initial pieces of some confidence, of some like understanding that I'm not worthless. And so I started to
mm,
live that. And that was going very well for the decent period of time. Let's say around a year or so. That was going very well. And our relationship was, I thought, going in such a good direction. It's like, all right, let's lead us towards marriage. And so ended up proposing, and that was all exciting, and it was all happy. And I was like, oh, this was so good. Like, feels like things are on a good path, and it's the path that it's supposed to be. And so as part of that, I thought, let's take some premarital counseling because things are already going so
mm.
well. Let's figure out how we can avoid any future potential potholes and just continue things just always going well. That was my mindset with it. And if you know anything with
Can
therapy,
I
you know that,
ask too,
yeah.
was she a Christian?
So she grew up, because I grew up as a Christian, because
Okay,
she was from my hometown and whatnot. Uh, in how she was living her life, I would say not so much, but
okay.
not from like a perspective of like if was I any better than her, like absolutely not. It's that like she was down with me in my own same level of not being a Christian and not having any
Yeah,
semblance of faith or whatnot. So it's like if if you are a if the word means something to you, if your relationship with Christ is very meaningful and impactful, then it's going to change your behavior. You will choose to
yeah,
act in a different way because you know that that is a better
yeah,
life because you were living that life, not just because it's like the right
yeah,
thing to do, but because like you're living it. You know the difference with choosing
yeah.
otherwise. And so to choose to be with someone like me, where I wasn't following anything like that, that leads me to then say what I just said there of I don't believe that she was living out her life in that way because I feel like if she
Mhm.
was, she would have chosen better than me because I don't think that I was a great person. Um, and since she was with me and we've seemed like we were pretty well matched with that, that's really, in my opinion,
Mhm.
two people that aren't Christians living together, living their
Yeah.
lives in a way that wasn't a Christian life, let's say. And so, um, with all of that, like I was saying, things were going in a really good trajectory. So it's like, all right, let's continue this in the best way possible. So I got connected with a counselor, and the thought was like, all right, we're going to do this. We'll see how well this goes. Hopefully, this is going to go good. In the first session, he said, hey, just so you know, I'm not going to tell y'all whether to get married or not. We are just going to dive into each of your stories, like who you are, and we will see if it, like, try to be able to understand like how compatible that you are and trying to help
Yeah.
you understand like how to chart a course forward. So for me, oh, that was awesome. Like, oh sweet, that was my main fear whether he's going to tell us not to get married. He said he's not going to tell us to get married. Great, awesome. I don't have to worry about that at all. So I was just like, sweet, I'm going to open up. I'm going to give everything and all this because also we're paying this dude. He's not cheap. So let's make the most of this. And so I was wide open. But it was interesting that she was guarded and she was more closed off. And I thought, you know what, we just met this guy. So it's going to take some time. That'll be okay. But
Yeah.
over the course of these different sessions, I was continuing to be open, continuing to pour out, and I was experiencing the beginnings of like my own life change and having confidence. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But she wasn't experiencing those same things. She was still very closed off and short responses, not opening up at all. And I kept noticing it. And then eventually she decided that she didn't want to continue going. And I was like, okay, that's okay. I'm seeing a lot from this, so I want to continue to keep going. And so I did. And through those sessions, as I kept going, I learned more and more about myself. And then I finally came to understand for myself that I was more so seeking the connection between me and her, more so than I was actually
Mm,
seeking her. To me,
mm,
that connection was the most important thing. And so I was willing to do whatever it took in order to maintain that connection. But that was a concept I didn't understand until that point, until that time. But once I did, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not in love with this girl.
mm.
I've spent now years with this girl. I've proposed. We are planning a wedding. All these pieces here. I've like, done so much work in order to try to be accepted by her family. Like all of these things, and I'm realizing, oh, I'm not actually in love with her. And that's when I learned that on this Christian walk, you will be faced with different decisions and different actions that you need to take, and
Yeah,
you have a choice where you can choose to do the easy thing or you can
yeah,
choose to do the right thing. And it's not been something that I've always gotten right. And with this instance, I didn't get it right in the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, this is way too scary of a thought to actually to end all of this. I've put so much work into this. I can't, even though I know I
yeah,
don't live, I can't undo all of this. And thankfully, there was multiple opportunities that God gave me because he knew me. And eventually I made that right decision. And after being in prayer, and after thinking about this over and over, and after talking about this with my counselor, like, okay, I fully know this now. I know what I have to do. So I went home
mm,
and told her, and we were done. That was the scariest thing that I'd ever done in my life at that point, but it was what I
yeah,
needed to do in order to save us both from probably a lifetime of pain, of knowing that I would have made the wrong choice and still gotten married, and we probably would have had kids. And then it's those cycles and it's those aspects of things that have been poured down from generation to generation would have been continuing to go through me if I had chosen to do that.
yeah,
But I made that hard choice, the right choice, to end it, to experience that pain then, to be able to help save us from decades of pain and passing that on through what would have been our kids, and then how what their view of a marriage is and what love is, and seeing that in a broken marriage with their mom and dad and all of those aspects there. And so that
mm,
was what ultimately how things came to be with that relationship there. I guess I'll like leave things there with that is in the interest of
yeah.
not
I think
going
you're
on
good.
for 5 hours so we could talk through all this, but yeah.
Th That's a lot, and that takes so much courage, and, you know, I haven't been to a point where I've been engaged, but I have had moments too where I'm just like, "Wow, like, I don't wanna hurt their feelings, this could keep going," like, I can make myself, like, feel more, right? I can force it, but at the end of the day, you find that it's actually also not only is it a disservice to yourself, it's a huge disservice to that person, and, I mean, there's people that I've liked in the past and had let go, and now they're thriving and happy, and God has placed them with the right person. I'm like, "I'm so glad that I didn't stand in the way of their blessing." Even if it doesn't look like I mean, I could be married by now if I had stuck with it. You could be married right now if you had stuck with it, but what would have been the cost? Your peace, your joy, the you talked about the generational, um, curses that could have been passed down, like, that
Yep.
is so even if you're listening, you're standing on making a really hard decision. I mean, David shared up to the point of engagement, that's huge. It's still worth trusting where God is leading you and stepping out versus basically imprisoning yourself out of peer pressure or feeling like I'm gonna disappoint someone else. So, that is that's intense. Now, David, I do wanna kinda do, like, a little pivot. So, something you had talked about in
Okay.
the beginning was a lot of Christians, like, they just live the same way as everyone else, or it's like, if you're a good person, then that's fine. And I think I wanna make sure we're distinguishing between behavior change. So, it's like coming to the Lord isn't just about w understanding your self-worth. It's not just about, like, being a man of integrity, but what did it look like to be in relationship with God for you? And how have you seen that since you've come to know the Lord? Like, how has that changed? Not just the, I'm a good person now, or I do the right things now, but what does it look like to be in relationship with the Lord?
Yeah, absolutely. I This is the person that came to my mind. Like, I've become a big proponent of everyone needs to have their space to where they can be fully open, honest, and transparent with God. And you might think,
Mm.
well, yeah, sure, I'm always like that. I would challenge you on that if you perhaps have never been angry with God. Because when you are fully
Mm.
open and transparent and honest with Him, there's going to be times, especially as the older that you get, there's going to be things that will happen in life where you might be left thinking, "What the heck, God? What is? Why did this happen? What is the lesson I'm supposed to learn with this? This doesn't seem like this is
Mhm.
anything of like a this is going to benefit me. This just feels this doesn't seem right."
Yeah.
And so I'm a big proponent of having a space where you can get that level of honest because God can handle your anger. That's not a surprise to him. That's not something that's going to be too overbearing for him. But what he can't do is when you hold back and you stuff down what you are actually truly feeling and you just hold that in, that's what he can't work with. And some of these things that may happen in your life, those could be opportunities where all of that can actually come out. And you might be thinking, oh gosh, I can't let all of this out. I can't let people see me this way. So I would recommend having a space where you can. For me, that's my car. Like that is my space where I am with God and I can go into everything that I'm feeling. And for me,
Mm.
I'm a very loud, expressive person. Not everybody is like that, but I need to be able to yell and I need to be able to super ugly cry and have all of whatever the emotion is that I'm feeling. I need to be able to let all of that be poured out for then me to come to a space of peace where then it's like, okay, I've gotten all of those pieces out. Now God is like, I can feel him present with me. It really literally feels like he's like just like got his arms wrapped around me. And it's a beautiful, like
Mm.
cathartic moment where I'm just like, okay, he's holding me. Okay. And then as part of that, it's like I continue on with the prayer, which is interesting. You might think of prayer as being something where you can't be angry and you can't let all the rest of that kind of stuff come out. But it's like, no, prayer is talking with our Heavenly Father, and He wants us to talk
Yeah.
with Him. And so He doesn't have to look perfect. I mean, heck, David in the Bible, I feel like, is one of the best examples of this. If you see how he's talking and all the things he's expressing, he's letting it out. He is not a perfectly eloquent version of how he's speaking with God. And I feel like that is something that we all need to understand that we don't need to have this perfect, eloquent way of how we talk with him. We need to actually come to him with who we actually are in that moment, in that time. And that is what I would say is
Yeah.
what it looks like for me now is continuing to bring my true honest self to God so that way then he can show me the things that he needs to show me. Because underneath anger is usually always something that is like a lower level emotion, where that is like if it's a fear, if it's a feeling of being abandoned, if it's a feeling of feel like you've been betrayed or that you've been hurt in a certain way. It's like that is what then actually needs to be able to come up. But it can only come up if you've gotten the anger part out and you've gotten that out of the way and God is like, I want you to be able to take your anger. I want you to be able to take all of these things that are um, blocking you or like it's a veil that's in front of your eyes from actually being able to see what's truly there. And he wants to show you like, this, this is that hurt that you've been holding on to, whether it's been
Mm.
for months or for years, decades even this internal belief that has been an untruth that was said over you when you were a small little child. He wants to bring that up out of you and for you to give that to him. And in my adult life, like that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recognize when am I running from God? What is like
Mhm.
what am I doing? Because for me, it comes out in different ways. Usually, it's from spreading myself way too thin across way too many different things, trying to stay very busy
Mhm.
so I don't have to
Mhm.
actually be faced with what I'm feeling inside.
Yeah.
And
So
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 that's what that
David,
looks like.
you said, like, you yell, you cry in the car, all those things. When you were first getting to know the Lord, did you feel dumb talking? Like, did you feel like you were talking to a sky daddy, or did you feel like God was meeting you? Like, what did that feel like for you? Because 'Cause I'm thinking about our listeners who may be thinking like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I can go just sit and talk," but I'm like, "How do I hear back?" Like, what did that feel like for you to get comfortable just kinda, like, being vulnerable? And maybe even
Yeah.
tying that in, I know therapy was a big part of your story too, like, how did that all tie in together?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to preface this by just saying this is tying in like with what was my experience here. And so I'm what
Yeah.
you call like a vocal processor, where in just being able to say things, that's where I can then have a better understanding of what's going on. Not everybody does that. So for others, it might be where you are writing this out versus yelling it or saying it, that kind of thing, or maybe it's a more of a thought related aspect there. So there's definitely different forms that this can take depending on who you are and like how you process these kinds of emotions, thoughts, all these kind of things here. For me, what I felt like in the beginning was kind of like half and half of half feeling stupid because it was something that I was doing that I wasn't used to, but also half of, well, I know what I experienced when I was in the agency and losing all the oxygen in my lungs. Like that was something that was real there. So I guess I'm just gonna hang my hat on that because that's crazy. And I've never
Yeah.
experienced that kind of thing before. So that wasn't just the typical thing and something I could just explain away. So there's got to be something there. So I'm really like hinging it like, on that in the beginning and going from like, okay, well, there's that piece of evidence there for me. I'm going to do this thing that feels strange and feels sometimes kind of silly because I don't know what this is supposed to feel like and what it's supposed to be like. I'm not a super Christian knowing what all this is and all of that, but I guess I'll do it because I do know what it felt like when I was pouring out my heart and my girlfriend was holding me. And that was a beautiful experience. And so I was like, okay, if there's a chance that talking to God is going to lead towards something like that, then I guess I'll give that a shot. So like that's what that felt like to me there. Can you remind me what the latter portion of your question was then? So that way I can
Yeah.
try to make sure to tie into that again.
Yeah, and I was talking about vulnerability and also recognizing that, like, even you with you sharing with your therapist, like, going to counseling, how you really opened up, and I just wondered how did that maybe connect to your ability to be open with the Lord and processing
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So in that therapy, that was you could call it a practice area where I'm talking with this third party about the things that are going on inside of me, and that was something. And again, like I was doing it because of like the hope for it to be able to make things better, but also because I was paying for it. So like that was definitely like an extra like
Yeah.
motivator there. And so it's like, all right, well, I'm going to try to utilize this to the fullest, essentially. And so I'm thinking about this like right now. Like I didn't even really realize this, but that's kind of like I said, like it's a training ground for doing this with God because I could think about this God external party. If you want to just like think about it just from a logistical kind of perspective there. And I'm sharing the things that are going on inside of me. And this is leading towards a change in my life for the better. Because that's what I was
Mhm.
experiencing through therapy. And so it's like, okay, let's continue to apply that here. And the key aspect that for so many people, it's like, well, how do I know when God is speaking to me? How do I know when He is answering me back? And that's going to be something that's going to be different for us all. The main thing I can say to everyone is you can get a little bit better at recognizing him, recognizing his voice when you spend time with him. It's kind of like
Yeah.
any other relationship that you would have. You're going to be able to know that person better when you're spending more time with them. You're going to be able to recognize their mannerisms. You're going to recognize how they handle situations, all those kinds of things. And so as you spend more time with God in prayer and in his word, you get to be able to know him better and understand him better. There's an aspect that you can glean from it from reading the pages, but there's also just an aspect of just being in the space where I don't know what it is. I'm just gonna call it it's God doing God stuff, like where He helps you to understand Him and to be able to see Him and hear Him in your life. And So that's what I would say for everyone. For me, the way that God spoke to me, it was basically is in two distinct ways. One was in my thoughts. And it's usually from a thought that was coming into my mind that was something that was difficult and that I did not want to do. Those were like some of the key components there. Usually was never a thought of something where it's like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna do this. This is gonna be easy. I'll just jump into that." Like, that was usually me. When it was something that was gonna be hard, when it was something that was going to actually require a lot of change within my life that I may not necessarily even want to do, that usually was a sign that it was something that God was telling me because I'm not just going to up and have that idea myself. 'Cause it's also not easy. It's not a
Yeah.
convenient thing. God is quite often not convenient and usually also not within our timing. Usually it's a lot slower than we would typically would want it to be. So like that was one component there was him speaking it to me like through thoughts. Well, it's very
Mm.
key that you spend that time with him and in the word to better understand and discern those thoughts between what is him and then what is just you or something else. And then the other aspect was things that were happening within my life that were totally outside of my control. I called it things that are coming out of left field. There's nothing
Mhm.
that I could have done, no part of me having any impact or like making something happen. This was stuff that I had no idea what was happening, and it just came into my life, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay, well, that's awesome. This is great." And it's just like I know that wasn't me because I had nothing to do with it. And for me
Mhm.
specifically, like that is something that I needed so very much. If I didn't grow up believing that God was present and that he was active in our lives, I believed that it all depended on me. And so that meant I had to make things happen. So
Yeah.
to see these things that were totally outside of my control coming out of left field, that was the reminder of, oh yeah, God is here, God is present, God is doing things that I can't even see that are happening, and he's bringing that into my life in his perfect timing. And over time, you start to recognize those things more and more, and you can then begin to trust that, okay, even if you don't see it right now, you can believe, okay, well, he's done this, and this, leading all the way up to today. There's no reason that he's going to stop doing that. So I'm going to trust that he's going to do that for this situation that I'm in right now, that he will bring something out of left field and he's going to make it okay in whatever way that he chooses that that's going to be.
So can you maybe share a time where maybe you didn't get the response you wanted from God, and how did you handle that disappointment?
Absolutely. To give a
Yeah.
different circumstance than the, hey, I'm with this girl. Stuff seems like it's all going good. And yet now I have to end this relationship. What in the world? 'Cause that was definitely one of the first big ones right there. Whew. Um, Gosh, the next clearest example is actually something very similar to that. So this is, let's say, fast forwarding about 4 or 5 years from that initial point with everything that I've talked about so far. I was in a different relationship, and this was one that was with somebody that I knew was a through and through Christian. I'd seen how that had worked all the way through her life. I'd seen how that had worked through her job and with how she connected with people, and it's been incredible to be able to witness that. And so it's just like, oh, okay, all right. I think this is going to be something that's really, really great here. And so I started dating this girl, and I had thought that, okay, all of these things are aligned, all these things are in the correct direction. Like our relationship, even though it had not been perfect, we were figuring things out together and we were working it in a better way. And so it's like, okay, all right, things are looking good here. This is good. This is good again. All right, I like this. Okay. You know what? We're even also like talking about what marriage could look like and those kinds of things. There's some excitement building there. All right, things are really going into a great direction. And as much as I had believed that, and as much as I thought that things were going in that right way and in that right direction, God was patient with me and he helped me to see how I had been ignoring things truly from the very start of that second relationship. And I had to actually face those things and I recognize, oh my gosh, I've actually done the same thing all over again, where I have
Mhm.
now focused on the connection instead of the person again. And
Mm,
it's like, oh
love
my gosh, I thought I
that.
had learned this lesson. I thought I had walked through this. I thought I had figured this out.
Mm,
And no, I had done those same things all over again. And thankfully, it hadn't reached that point of us getting married. It hadn't reached that point of us having kids and all the rest of that there. It had a huge impact because had to be faced with the fact that I've been ignoring stuff about our relationship, but I had also ignored things about myself as well. So, like, in this Christian walk that you will have, it may not be a completely linear path that you're on, where it just seems like things are
yeah.
all going in the right direction, things are all going as you would have hoped. It might be things where you take steps forward, and then you might find that you have actually then taken some steps back. That is
Yeah.
the human path. That's the human walk. Like, we're not perfect. We are going to make those mistakes. And sometimes we will take steps
Yeah.
back as well. But the beauty in that is that God is still
Yeah.
patient with us, still guiding us, and He's more than willing to walk through those times as many times as we need to be able to
Mm,
learn the lesson or learn how to follow Him or hear His voice and truly have Him being a part of everything throughout it all. And I'm very thankful that He has continued to be that patient
yeah.
with me.
Yeah. So, David, dating wasn't on my list of questions for you
Oh,
today. That was not
geez.
one of the topics that I had given to David. But dating has come up in this conversation, and I'm listening, and I feel like I too, transparently, feel like I have sometimes repeated patterns in my way of dating, of also making myself force myself to like people or whatever it may be. And even thinking like, oh, they're Christian. On paper, we fit. Everything should be okay then. We should be good. Have you processed those past relationships and thought about how moving forward, maybe how to not maybe follow into those last footsteps of forcing yourself, looking for the companionship and not actually in love with the person? Has God given you any revelation there?
Absolutely. 100% because when falling into that trap, for me, what that has meant is I haven't been okay with just being myself, with just me, just existing like as me.
Mm,
So I'm looking towards that connection as something to help showcase to me, like, okay, now I am whole, or now I'm actually okay. Because I know there's somebody else that desires me. That means that I have value and whatnot. And that was a very
mm,
that was a core belief instilled at a very young age of this thought that I'm worthless and that I have no value or that I have to earn the I have to earn the right to be able to exist. Like that was
mm,
something that was instilled at a very young, small age. And so it takes a long time to undo or to unlearn those core beliefs that have been set at such a small age. And so I needed multiple relationships to be able to see and to understand that. But now I see and I know, like, okay, I am actually perfectly fine just being me. Sorry, not just being me, but like being just me by myself. I don't have to have someone
mm.
that is right next to me in order to feel like I am whole. Like just me
Yeah.
and God, me and Christ together, that is enough. Like I am whole there. It's like I'm not bringing like a portion of me to a relationship. I'm bringing like my whole self then to a relationship. And when I do that, I can actually better discern the person and recognize, do I actually like this person, or is it just the initial draw and desire that there was towards a person? Because it's not a bad thing of having that draw and desire to someone, but it needs to be more than just that. And like that was something that I've had to learn for myself of recognizing, okay, am I doing this for the connection, or am I doing it because I truly actually value and I want this person? And then asking myself the questions of, okay, well, what is it that I value about this person? What is it that I like about this person? Getting specific with that instead of
Mm,
being vague and just going, she's really great. And it's her personality. It's just like, okay, well, beyond just It's her personality. What about her personality? What are those things that you see
Yes.
her do? Those actions that she takes, the way that she speaks, just like going into very specific details about the person that are the things that are drawing you to that person versus it just being, oh, she likes me. She wants me, and that's all that I need. Like 'cause that's the way that I was thinking with those previous relationships
Mm.
was just that. That was it. I didn't think beyond it and didn't even try. So now I observe. And when I get those initial like rush of the emotions and all the things, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad that they're there. That's a prerequisite. I need that. That should be there. But we're gonna relax. We're gonna calm it down. We're gonna actually look at this person and observe this person. How do they handle conflicts? How do they handle things that don't go right in their life? How do they communicate? How do they just noticing these specific things about a person and not just having the rose colored glasses of just knowing, oh, this person desires me and that's it. So that's what I would say is that change. That's the change that has been there for me for how I'm handling relationships now versus how it was previously.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I'm excited to see and hear more about your dating stuff offline, off of this podcast. But with that, David, I think we're coming on time. It has been so good to have you. Are there any, like, last thoughts that you wanna share with the listeners about anything at all? It could be something fun, it could be something related to the podcast, anything you wanna share.
um, I guess it's it's tying back into that earlier point that I had mentioned about having some kind of a space where you can be fully open and transparent with
Mm.
God. Because I just think that is
Yeah.
so valuable to not just be giving this surface level or to be giving the pretend version of yourself that you might bring on a Sunday morning. Like, don't bring that you to God. Bring the
Yeah.
full rest of like all of you to him because he can do
Mhm.
so much with that, even when you think there's nothing that can be done. Like, he is God. He is limitless. There's nothing that he can't do. But like he wants
Mm.
to show you how he's working within you as he's doing it. And so like he you're along for the ride and you get to see that whole experience. And so bring your full self to him and he can do incredible things. So that's what I would leave with there.
Thanks, David. I appreciate you coming on, and usually I would pray us out, but I know you can pray, and the listeners get to hear me pray a lot. So would you
Ha!
do the honors and pray us out?
For sure. I'd love to. I'm gonna take off my glasses because that's what I
Mm.
always do whenever I'm praying.
Okay.
Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you so much for waking us up, allowing us to be able to be in this day with you. Father, thank you so much for Zari, for
Mm.
her having this space for people to be able to listen and hopefully to be able to hear how you are working in somebody's life. And Father, thank you for what you've done in my life for me to be able to share about this, to be able to share my own story, to be able to have a clear contrast of what life was like before you and now with you. And that I can see that is tangible to me. It's something that I can hold on to and that I can point to very clearly and distinctly. Father, I just ask for you to bring that about for everyone. Help them so that way they are not just being blown to and fro from all of the different things that are always coming up in our society and all of the noise that is present there. But Father, help you have your voice cut through all of the noise for them to be able to hear you, to be in that still, small, quiet space, to hear you, to know that you are there, to know what you have for them, and that it is always more. It is always better than where their life is right now, even if we don't always see it like that. Even from our human perspective, it doesn't look like that to us. Help us to trust that you know the best for us, that you know our true heart's desires, and that you will not withhold any good thing from your children. So help us to remember that when these times get hard. Help us to remember that when it feels like it is chaos that is all around us everywhere that we look, to know that we can rest in you and who you are and do the very small thing that you would have us do as your children. Father, thank you for this. Thank you that this is true. Thank you for everything that you are. It's your beautiful name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you, David, for that amazing prayer and for just sharing your story with us. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.